All right, it says we're streaming live here, so I'll assume that that's the case. What's going on, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix. I'm back for another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live, and behind me you can see the starry vista of the night sky, which is not quite night yet, but it's a good background, and I like it. And I decided to go with the pork pie hat tonight to, I don't know, get a little yachty. I'm feeling a little yachty these days. Anyway, how is everybody? You'll probably hear Jasper um, in the other room. He had a weekend of therapy. Just to let you know, he had a weekend of therapy, and he's coming around. I think I'm gonna have to get him another cat because he's been sort of beside himself. But I waited. I waited to get another cat because I traveled last week. So I was out of town for like, I don't know what, 4 days. So I didn't really want to get a new cat and have, the sort of the burden of the cat. And my friends who were coming over to feed Jasper, and also our lovely little outdoor cat here. It's weird because there is another cat here, but like that cat has its world and my cat has his world, and the two really don't. They really don't, not because they have any aggression or enmity towards one another. It's because the outside cat doesn't like it inside. He's just not into it. And I don't know, maybe Jasper would be okay outside. He seems to be okay, but I just spent the weekend trying to how should I say this? De-pest the living space. So I never had a problem with fleas in my animals ever until I moved to the country. When I moved to the country, it became an issue, and particularly because the people that lived here prior to me, they're lovely people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing them or knocking them at all, but they had dogs and inside outside dogs. They had an inside outside cat. So I inherited renters that don't pay rent. They're flea loaders. That's what they are. So I had to work assiduously on getting rid of these flea loaders. And I'm not going to stick him back outside just so he can have a connection with another cat. Besides, I watched a video today. It was quite good on cats. And who was it? It was, I think it's the Russian Orthodox, who said cats should be indoors and dogs should be outdoors. I kind of think that, actually. I do kind of think that. Very interesting video on cats. And we're not, can we do some cat astrology tonight? We're headed into Leo season, aren't we? The big cats are different than the smaller cats. Their eyes are different. The big cats have the kind of straight eyed, and the smaller cat, or the house cat, has the lizard eye in the center of the round eye. The big cats don't have that. So the small cats they're different. We'll talk about, maybe we'll do some cat stuff when we get into Leo, and that'll clearly be next week. Speaking of Leo, big shout out to my brother David, the Leo King. I hope you're doing well and on the rapid rebound, the bullet train to optimal health. And I know we're all looking forward to you coming back and practicing some of your Leo King magic. It's interesting, and I hadn't really thought about this, but the sign before your sign. So in David's case, it'd be Cancer, right? We all have a personal year. So the sign before your sign is, we have two personal years, by the way, astrologically. We have the personal year that relates to our sun sign. And then we have the personal year that relates to our ascendant. And I think they're both equally important because they both signify a time of rebirth in some ways. And for you lucky double signs, you get it all at once, right? You get the rising sign and the sun sign, which means you were born when just after or around sunrise. That's how you get the double sign. Yeah. But I think if you look at it from that perspective, that 11th month before the return of your sun sign, right? Or the end of the 12th month, the beginning of the new solar year for yourself. That's kind of an interesting time because it's not like you're at your peak. You're at your peak when your sun sign rolls around. Like that 3 or 4 day period just before and after your solar return, that's a pretty significant time. Like you're at the peak of your powers. So when the month before your sun sign, like you're kind of going like this, right? You're kind of going like this. You're beginning to dip a little bit. So in David's case, being that we've been in the month of Cancer before he gets to the his solar return in Leo, right? It's sort of like the batteries are running dry a little bit, and I've certainly experienced that with my ascendant, and like the sign in the 30-day period before my ascendant, which is in Scorpio. It's not really a great time, right? It's not. I mean, it's okay if I'm willing to just kind of lay low and be a hermit. That's fine. But it's not like hey, let's party for the next month with the sun in Sagittarius in my first house, which is pretty fun too. But so I think there's some truth to that. Like when you get to the month before your solar return, I think you're kind of at an ebb. And I've talked about this when it comes to how we view planets or signs when they change signs or planets. So for instance, when a sign changes sign, we talked about this before, and we'll use the sun again, that when you get to the 27th and 28th degree, there's a flash, right? There's all this kind of crazy energy around the 27th and the 28th degree. The person that I love to use as an example is Bill Murray, who is born on the 21st of September, which means he is a 28 Virgo sun. And Bill Murray's all over the fucking place, right? You watch him at Pebble Beach, he's all over the place. He's, Bill Murray's crazy, right? He's got that quality to him. And then you get to the 29th degree and there's nothing left, zero flat. And then you get to the rebirth of the sign, right? In the next month, which is at zero. And it's like, fullness, big energy. So you can make a similar analogy when it comes to the sign before your own sign. And it can, and again, I do think that house placement plays a role in it. So I have my Leo planets up in the 9th house. And, that's a pretty extroverted out there time in my life, generally speaking. But I'm just trying to think if there are other points in my life where during August I would experience, I kind of would. I mean, when I was a kid, and I know that this is probably something that a lot of kids in America or maybe in other parts of the world experience, but I always felt like August was like death. Like I was like, part of me was dying when August would roll around because I would know that the summer was coming to an end, and I'd have to go back to school, and so I'd always have these weird kind of melancholy feelings about August, and it just happens to be before my birthday month. So I think that there's some, for me, that's how I would relate to that. Now maybe that's what everybody would experience, but I don't know. It was my experience. So, and I think that we're just trying to use David as a bit of a test case here, right? Cancer, dealing with, your own ability to self-nurture, care. And, David works his ass off And, he works hard, he plays hard. He rides his jet ski and, all that stuff that makes him David. So, now we have Cancer coming into the mix here. And this is not a lecture, it's just an observation, right? And this is nature's way of saying, okay, buddy, here you go. You got to, turn the lights out for a few days, unplug from your computer and your cell phone, and Cancer up, right? So I think there's some validity to that. And maybe it would be useful for you to look at like the month before your birthday and see where you are in terms of your energy, in terms of your wellness, things like that. So I think it's an interesting topic to explore because, we are our own canvases when it comes to astrology. When I do a reading for somebody, shit, I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of examples that I could use with any number of aspects or transits from my own life or from the life of people that I know and I've been close to and watched their life in action. So I've used a number of examples, right? So your life is like a living laboratory of astrology, and looking at where you are at a certain time with certain transits or things that happened, especially if you're paying attention to other people, because I'm a projector and I definitely pay attention to other people. And I try to kind of understand, where they are, what they're doing, and or just I have to. It's just how I'm wired, right? Just how I was the kid in high school that knew shit about people, right? I knew things about people, and I just I had an ear. I had an ear, and I could kind of see and follow, and it's not like I was a creep or trolling or trying to create like a dossier on people, but I kind of did. I kind of had a dossier on people because a lot of times I was just trying to figure out what the human experience was. And so I knew like who they were and part of their family background and family history, and not even really to use it against them. Like there wasn't any kind of, you know, manipulative intention behind it. I just wanted to know what made, I was curious and I want to know what made them tick. And, and I've told this story before. Every now and then I would say something to somebody at a party and I would, say, well, yeah, this and that, and, your dad and da, 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 and this business. And they're like, well, how the fuck did you know that? I'm like, I just, I went to your damn pizza parlor. Okay. And I knew that was your dad. And I knew that, your dad was there and he worked there. And it's not that hard. I just paid attention. And a lot of people just don't pay attention. And that's all it really was. It's just paying attention at different levels. So anyway, I'm gonna go in this for a little bit. Then I'm gonna jump into chat, and we'll get to chat. And tonight we're gonna talk about Venus tonight, because in the day sky, I believe in sidereal, Sirius is still rising before the sun. It's an interesting time. We're in the dog days, and the dog days being the dog star Sirius, and it's when technically the waters of the Nile rise, right, and then the fields flood and they get their rice crops. It's a big deal, right? So the dog days of summer is a big deal, just in terms of the even the astrotheology and the binary star, which we're not going to get into too much tonight. But some people believe that. So there are people, again, I'm not going to get into this tonight either because it's a much bigger topic. But some people believe that space is fake. Okay. Some people believe space is fake. Well, you can actually see things through a telescope. I'm not even talking about the Hubble or the Webb Hubble. Webb Hubble. That's kind of a joke in a way, because they had the Hubble telescope, and then they had the James Webb telescope, which they just started. You put them together, and it's Webb Hubble, and Webb Hubble is supposedly the father, the illegitimate father of Chelsea Clinton. But when you do look at like a standard telescope, pretty high power on a dark night with a very, very dim sky. When I say dim, I mean not a lot of ambient light. the stars don't look like the way that they're depicted, right? But they're there. They're there. They just don't look like these perfect little round orbs. They look different. So I believe there's a there. We deal with luminaries, whether you believe it's a firmament or not, or whatever's beyond the firmament, right? Or whether we're dealing with luminaries or we're dealing with mythologies or astrotheologies. We could have this conversation for days. And there's crossovers with a lot of that stuff. Like there's crossovers with, the planets being gods, right? Named after these gods, and keeping us in this idea that we're in this kind of indentured servitude to fate. Which, by the way, we could have a pretty big discussion about that, right? Because there's a very fatalistic relationship with astrology, which I, by the way, don't like. I'm not into it. God bless these young people. And even if you're listening here, like there are people that obsess over like every single aspect that's going to happen to them in their charts, in their lives. And I'm like, is obsessing over it going to make it any better? I mean, what are you going to do about it? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is what are you going to do about it? And there's so much fear, right? There's so much fear when we talk about something like Pluto, and Pluto, evoking this god of the underworld. Literally you would get snatched from the from the terrestrial realm. You'd be taken in the underworld with Pluto, right? There's that kind of like fear around Pluto. Or Neptune, which is the watery seaborne version of Pluto. Neptune will snatch your ass and take you to the bottom of the drink, and you'll drown, right? I mean, there are these kinds of very deep archetypes embedded in our mythology around astrology. I'll never forget, like when I first started to get into, I wasn't even really into astrology yet. I think it was around maybe 22. I didn't really get into astrology until I was about 25 and started to study it. But I remember when I was 22, I was telling people, how old I was. And I would get this comment a lot. Remember, I lived in California. So you wouldn't really get this comment if you lived in Topeka. But I lived in the Bay Area. Oh, you haven't gone through your Saturn return yet. Oh, you haven't gone through your, oh, really? Oh, wait till you get to your Saturn return. I'm like, what the fuck are these people talking about? So I started to fear my Saturn return. And I knew, because by that time I had started studying astrology. So by the time I was 26, 27, I'm like, okay, here it comes. It's the thing everybody was warning me about. Oh boy, it's gonna end. It's really gonna end here. And I think the programming around it, in as much as whatever kind of deeper mythological resonance, for better or worse, we have as part of our collective unconscious, that added into it too. So by the time my Saturn return rolled around, I was a mess. And I learned a lesson from that, because ultimately I've seen Saturn symbolically and mythologically as a, astrophysical force in one's life. I've actually come to see it as a necessary benefic. And there are people who say, "Oh no, well, sure, it's gonna cause your Saturn transits will cause you to grow." I mean, that's just the bottom line. They're going to cause you to grow, and what are you going to do? Are you going to grow, or are you going to just let the whole thing steamroll you? And I think as a person gets older, they have a better chance of understanding these things, because they realize that you get through shit, right? But even younger people, I feel, have an ability to do that, because I in as much as we've been interrupted and corrupted by these external agencies, whether it's our diet or frequencies or injections, we still have this ability for the most part, even though it's lately it's been really corrupted. But we still have, for the most part, the ability to pass something down to the next generation who is slightly better at something than we were. And I've seen it. I've seen some of these Gen Z kids, and the Gen Z kids are just, they're fucking amazing with astrology and their ability to navigate their, like the ones that have come to me, to navigate their lives at a high level has been mind boggling. Like, okay, we if we can maintain a healthy like nexus of these young people, we're going to be okay. Because I've really been blown away by a lot of them. Right. So even the succession of, like, say for instance, me or you, let's say you've learned something, right? You've learned something, you've embodied it. And so whenever you go out to the world, you have the ability to master it, whatever that is, right? And that's Saturnian. You get to mastery through the Saturnian transits in your life. That is going to go somewhere. It's not just going to, rest between your ears or your digits, right? That's going to go somewhere. That is going to go into this biofield of intelligence. But that might have even been corrupted as well. But this biofield of intelligence, and that these things get passed down. Now, there are other components where things have gotten more de-evolutionary. But the idea is that the next generation has something, right? And they get it because it's part of the morphogenetic field. Like whatever kind of fatalistic and fear-based relationship with Saturn that I had, that was essentially being programmed by other people for me, I would say that that's going to be less with a current generation. And there's other reasons why too, because also when I was growing up, the books on astrology and the books on what we would call esotericism, they were all pretty dark. Like there was a heavy occult tilt with that kind of knowledge back in the 70s and even up into the 80s. Like the whole explosion of, like, quote unquote new thought wasn't out there. So even when you would read somebody like Isabel Hickey, who's an astrologer, and considered to be one of the, better early American astrologers, there's a lot of fatalistic shit in her astrology. It's not until we get into some of the evolutionary astrologers, Mark Edmund Jones comes around, Dane Rudhyar comes around. You have this whole second wave of people like, Robert Hand and Stephen Forrest and Liz Green. They're starting to look at and really, I think a lot of it starts with Dane Rudhyar, Stephen Arroyo. I mean, now we begin to look at astrology from a very, very different place. It is less fatalistic in a lot of ways. And hence we get the term evolutionary astrology, which comes out of the whole idea that we can evolve through the chart, that our chart is not a curse. Although there are hard charts, don't get me wrong. And I've counseled through a few. There are some people have tough lessons in life, and other people have easy charts. Even though they have easy charts, it doesn't necessarily mean they have easy lives, because people can squander their all these trines and sextiles that they have in their charts and not get any use out of it. Anyway, we're going to talk about Venus tonight. We're going to talk about relationship. And again, the reason I brought this whole thing up and we went down that alley is because there are people that believe that Venus is actually serious. That Venus doesn't exist, right? There are people that actually believe that. Well, whether you believe that or not, that's on you, right? As an astrologer, I understand it. I understand its relationship to relationship. I understand it implicitly and have seen it worked out. Again, I'll give you an example. I had a client a couple of days ago. Lovely person. I hope she's watching the show. Lovely person. And I looked at her chart and I said, "Oh, you've got a Saturn Venus square. I bet you haven't had too many relationships in your life. And the ones you have had have lasted a long time, haven't they?" And she said, "Well, yes, that's true. She's been married twice, And I think it added up to something like 40 years between her two husbands. Boom, Venus Saturn square. That's what you see with a Venus Saturn square. You don't get many relationships. The ones you have are long. If it's a lousy relationship, it's hard to get out of. If it's a good relationship, boom, you're working towards something. You don't mind putting the effort in, finding mutuality, right? And she had a cool chart too, because she had what was it, Venus? Where was her Venus was in Capricorn, which by and large you would say, well, that's that's not really great, right? Venus in Capricorn, kind of official and staid a little bit. Maybe you're trying to find somebody in the image of your father if you're a woman, but what I've seen with people of Venus and Capricorn is that their best relationships come to them later in life. And then, she had Saturn in Libra, which is exalted in the seventh house with accidental exaltation, hence the Venus Saturn square, right? So, and I'm looking at her chart. I'm like, I think you're prime for another relationship, because I've seen this before. I've seen this with Saturn in the seventh house. When people have a natal Saturn in the seventh house, or they're having a transit of Saturn through the seventh house, which is relationship, they have some of the best relationships of their life. And I mean like one-on-one. And I remember seeing this woman going through a Saturn transit. It was back when Saturn was in, I think it might have been in Scorpio. It was either in Scorpio or early Sag. I was looking at this and I brought it up and I said, and I said, wow, you're prime, even though at your age, you're prime for a really solid, and age is relative, but I think she was probably 73, 74. She said, I just got married and it's the best relationship I've ever had in my life. So I'm sharing some of this with you to kind of, to what's the word? De-escalate talk around Saturn, right? Like there's payoffs there. There's payoffs. We're going to talk about Venus tonight. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up was because of Hunter Biden. And we're going to get in Hunter Biden's Venus. I played with it a little bit on Facebook. So we're going to talk about that tonight. I did a show with Masaki on Friday, and we talked about China. And I felt like towards the end of the show, I got back into the astrology of China. And I felt like it was worth going over here again because there was something I didn't cover in that chart that I do want to cover tonight. And I think it's an important component to what's going on with China. And what happens with China is going to happen with the rest of the world, right? To a large extent, that's where we are now. It used to be the United States. If the United States sneezed, the rest of the world caught a cold. I mean, that was the story. Not so much now. Now it's kind of like where the trade winds blow from China. A butterfly flaps its wings, and there's a monsoon in Africa, which is based on chaos theory. But there's some interesting parallels to that. Of course, we're going to look at the chart of the moment and what's going on with astrology right now, and try to deep cast a little bit here tonight, because there's a lot happening in this world right now. There's a lot, and you can see the astrology at work. We'll take a stop at Holland. We'll talk about Mars and Taurus with Holland or the Netherlands. So you can see the astrology at work in a lot of different ways. And if the astrology is working on a mundane level, at a global level, that means that there are certain things that we can count on, like the metronome, the click track of the solar system is kicking into place. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm Robert Phoenix, and this is Sunday Night AstroLive. We're going to be going, and thanks for your patience, we're going to be going till probably about, probably about 10 o'clock East Coast time. That'll be 9 o'clock my time, right? So about another hour and a half, maybe a little bit more. The reason I try to get off a little early on Sundays because the mods all live on the east, so I don't want to keep them up too late. Although it is summertime, and remember as a kid you used to get up later in the summertime too. That was another part of it. I think I always like took notice of the sun. It's like the days are getting a little bit shorter here. This is a drag. I mean, I think that was part of it too, but it was right before my birthday month. So I think maybe it's cyclical, but just think about it for a second. If you're, what's your experience been like when, a month before your birthday, when you're in the previous sign? I think it's an interesting discussion to be had. Okay. Let's see. Who do we have in chat tonight? I hope we have a nice, busy, and packed Chataria. Let's see who do we have here. I saw Sully. Love the hat. Yachty vibes. We went out last night, and I was yachting it up last night. Let's see. Sony's here. What's going on, Sony? TJ, my man, Tom Jordan, and Ryan. They got the pipe wrenches. Good to see you guys. 2 cats are better than 1. I've noticed that. I've noticed that, Veronica, because Jasper was treated like a king by Rosie. I mean, like a freaking king. And now his kingship is not. Now he expects me to be his serf. Like now I'm his serf. And I told him I don't lick fur. I don't do the fur lick thing. I think we've gotten that part covered. Let's see. Amanda Fox, what's going on, Amanda? MLMC1. Yes, Jasper needs a new pal. Hopefully he's less aloof tonight. Jasper has been taking a mental health break for about the past week now. So I'm just sending vibes out to the universe. The feline goddess of the universe to have a cat show up, kind of that way. I wasn't looking for these cats. It belonged to my ex-wife, and she couldn't have them because her new husband was allergic to cats. That should have been a sign, don't you think? That should have been a sign. And her son loved those cats. So she chose her soon-to-be allergic husband over those cats. Personally, I think that's a choice that might need to be revisited. I don't know ill will by any chance, by any stretch. But that's the Aries mentality. Get her done. Okay, let's see who else we have. Erica E. Happy Sunday back to you. Kells Bells. Jasper does. I'm not enough. I'm okay with that, by the way. I'm really okay with that. I don't need to be his one in that way. Southwest Florida real estate with Lewis Walden, who is the top ranked and top rated real estate agent in Southwest Florida. Saw some good. Hey, I got a good channel for you guys. Speaking of Florida, let me bust out this channel. Really cool channel. And in fact, I saw a whole video today on cats. So let me it's a brand new channel. I'm really digging it. Let me go over here. Thanks for reminding me, Lewis, about this channel. And it seems to be going fairly well. I love the opener of this channel. It's fucking funny as hell. It's got a Miami Vice vibe to it, but it's actually a quote unquote spiritual channel. We got a live comet approaching. All right. I'll have to check that out. I'll have to check out the live comet. Comets are portentous. The old world feared comets. They believed that they were dragons blazing across the sky. Ominous. All right, here's the channel. Pretty cool channel. So I'm going to turn you guys on to it. Doesn't have many videos. It is Old World Florida. And what did I see today? Oh, Pussy Power, The Hidden History of Cats, The Lost Tribe of Tartaria, The Seminoles of Florida. This was really fascinating. This just posted 3 hours ago. I'm looking forward to catching that one. And then this one was great, right? Hell on Earth, Ancient Finnish Wisdom. That's a banger right there. You want to check that out? 35,000 views already. And then St. Augustine is Atlantis. So, we're in a really super interesting time. It's very Neptunian. We're living in a very Neptunian world. China, we got into it with China on Friday, Masaki and I brought Neptune into the discussion. But we're at the height of these Neptunian like vapors, and I'm into the whole yacht rock. It must be Neptune. I'm going to blame it on Neptune. And so we have all these different streams of reality that are they're like timelines in some ways, right? These timelines are like these rivulets of illusion or fantasy or myth or gnosis or reconnecting us to some other stream or dimensional relationship we've had with the planet. I mean, it's all happening simultaneously right now. I mean, seriously, it all is. I mean, where else can you find this idea of Tartaria and these hidden cities and mysteries and timelines and then simultaneously find all these other fucking weird realities all happening at once? I mean, we really are in this kind of Piscean deluge of information and possibility. What's really going on here, what's really happened, where is it really going? But people have been talking a lot about the Archaics channel. And John Levi had a great show today, by the way. There's another channel that I love. We have a Sunday morning ritual watching John Levi and coffee. So he's talking about Archaics. And what's really interesting, this whole idea of the Simulacra, which isn't really new in a lot of ways, but a lot of information has been cobbled together by Archaics to give it, a kind of a framework for people to wrap their heads around. But I was watching a breakdown of Baudrillard, who is like considered one of the first postmodern. I mean, Marx might be postmodern. Hegel might be postmodern, but Baudrillard really gets into postmodernism from our vantage point. And he talks about how our reality has become a simulacra. Like that comes out of postmodernism. And the reason why, it's because of the ability to capture an image. And we got to a certain point where we could see these images and we could have these reference points. But once media came into play, we had reference point on top of reference point on top of reference point on top of reference point. So now we're 3, 4, 5 iterations or 5 copies downstream from reality. That is considered a simulacra, right? So even that plays a role. It may not be the same definition of a simulacra or the similarity or whatever you want to call it, but the postmodernists were onto this stuff. And postmodernism plays a huge role in critical theory. And so now you have this kind of postmodern idea of a fake reality, and that fake reality has essentially birthed an ideology. It's birthed a religion. And the religion is postmodern social Marxism. And they're kind of making it up as they go. So this is the weird thing that we're in now too with Neptune, and we don't even really understand it because of how Neptune operates, is that we are right now in the process of watching a religion being born. I mean, people will say, well, wokeism is a cult, or wokeism. It is. It's a religion. We're watching a religion being born before our very eyes. It has a belief system. It has a code of ethics. It has an organizing principle. And like any good religion must have, you have to have somebody to slaughter and sacrifice, because the slaughter and the sacrifice of that thing helps bring in the birth of something new. Now, in the case of postmodern cultural Marxism, that is twofold. You have the martyr, who is the imitation of Christ, which is part of the Piscean age, but then you have the perpetrator of the martyr. So it's kind of like if you were starting a new religion and you wanted to have a martyr, but you also wanted to like sacrifice and get rid of the Romans and the Jews at the same time, because they're the ones that did it, right? That's what's happening simultaneously. And it's incredibly Piscean. And we're watching it before our very eyes. And there's costumery, there's a ritualization around this. I mean, it may not be a beautiful one. I'm not even endorsing it, by the way. It may not be beautiful or poignant, but there are rituals going on. Like when you go to drag queen story hour, or you go to, a drag queen at the local bar, and the 10, 12-year-olds or 11-year-olds or 9-year-olds or whatever are giving them tip money. That's a ritual. That is a ritual. And where's it taking place? Well, it went from libraries, which tend to be kind of third housey, right? Like a library is a third house thing. Every community has one. And you go there and you check out books. You can only do it for a limited period of time, which is the third house, right? That's what you own a book. That's kind of a ninth house thing. You start your own library, right? But a bar is like a 12th house establishment. I mean, that's what a bar is. A bar is like a 12th house establishment. It can be a bit of an 8th house establishment too. Maybe in this case, it might be an 8th house establishment, but nonetheless, it's like a 12th house establishment because you're around alcohol. And what's also interesting is that so this whole drag queen story hour thing started about a year and a half ago. But there was a certain point where it turned, and they were, and the drag queens were going into these bars, and and the parents would bring their kids into these bars for the drag queens to, do their routines and get tip money, and begin what I would call normalization. Right? When did that happen? I know I could find at least one or two stories right around when the true node was conjuncting Algol, right? And Algol being alcohol. It's related to alcohol. So we were starting to see it then, right? Where's the place where they serve alcohol? At a bar. So, but again, what we're witnessing, and by the way, that's not the only religion, but we're witnessing the birth of a religion. We don't understand it though. Like when you see religious movements happen, or in the past, and we'll just go on the historical record or the historical canon. Like, do you think, and we're gonna just play, we're just gonna play with this model. Do you think that at the time of Jesus, Sananda, the disciples, that they said, "Hey man, this is gonna be big. This shit's gonna be big. We better get in on it. Let's start it. This is a religion, and we're gonna have, millions and millions of people around the world following the word." Like, do you think that they were that conscious and aware of it at that time? Maybe, I don't know. Again, we're playing with the model. You may not believe in the model. You may not believe in the historical version of the model. I'm just using it as a model. What about Mormonism? Do you think that when Mormonism started out, they said, "Oh yeah, we're in the midst of this"? Maybe because you had messianic fervor with the founders, but I don't think people are always aware of when an actual religion begins. It's like you're a fish in a fishbowl. Do you know you're in water? I don't think so. That's another Piscean metaphor, by the way. So all these things with, the Church of Woke are meeting a criterion. And it is a postmodern social Marxist critical theory religion. It's got all the hallmarks, organizing principles, you name it. It's all there. We saw some of this happen with the Q movement. Again, Neptune and Pisces. People were rallying around certain ideals, organizing principles, Am I right? Yeah. I mean, that was going on. So we're in this miasma of, beliefs and illusion. And I was going to do this whole thing on YouTube and internet profits, because I think that's also part of what we're going through now. We've kind of moved. Now you can find traditional Christian internet prophets on YouTube by the hundreds, by the thousands. They're out there. But there are also a new breed of what I would call internet prophet, which, some people would say an astrologer might fit into that category. Well, maybe that's true, but they're ubiquitous now, right? We're in this time of internet prophets. And I've heard some, that's the next Nostradamus, or this is the next Nostradamus, or this is the next so and so, or this person really, really has the juice. And man, are they really channeling something, right? So this is also part of Neptune and Pisces and these final degrees, when we're in this kind of Scorpio decan, the Scorpionic decan. And with Scorpio, there's not a lot of middle ground, right? There's either, you've either got the truth, or you're with the truth, or you're not, or you don't have it, right? So it's like, well, hold on, maybe I'm sitting this one out. I need more information. I need to see where this whole thing goes. Because I'm telling you, we are in this weird time with Neptune. Remember, Neptune is going into Aries. It is going to go into Aries, and it's going to be a big fucking deal when it goes into Aries. Big deal. Aries is a fire sign. Neptune, watery, right? Literally God of the underworld under the sea. He is the aquatic version of Pluto. So with Aries, though, it's going to get very intense. Very, very intense. Because now what we're seeing is this kind of, the upsurge and the swell of what I would call YouTube. Let's call them YouTube prophets. When Neptune goes into Aries, there are going to be people that are so convinced that they have the answer. So convinced. And it'll be a number, it'll be any stripe of what I'm talking about. You could have somebody who could be the most hardcore, most woke, most, critical theory based, guru on the planet. You'll get them. You will get them. You'll get other people that are so possessed or self-possessed of their rightness, not righteousness, but rightness with Neptune and Aries. And they'll be militant. You will see the rise of what I would call militant cults or militant religions. And that includes, by the way, Christian theocracy, which is also on the rise, almost as equally as we have the sort of the woke postmodern critical theory religion. So we're in this time now, right, where these new ideas, these new faith, I guess you could call it faith, I'll call them religions, they're emerging. And then you have a whole network of YouTube prophets who are engaged in either the promotion of, or the definition of, or the channeling of, right? So I can kind of see where this is going. And I think it's interesting, don't get me wrong, but it can also be kind of dangerous too. Because just when you think you have the truth or the right answer, reality has a very interesting way of tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you got a few details, you left a few details out here. You may want to go back and revisit some of this, right? That's just the way it is. And there are some smart people, some switched on people, and really, really perceptive people. And guess what? If you're watching this, more than likely, you're one of them. Okay. That's the other thing too, right? This tends to be a bit of a one-way thing sometimes, although I try to open it up more. And I think that can be really dangerous. You're one of them too, right? Your perceptions, your ability to interpenetrate the external world and the internal world are valuable, and never forget that. Never, ever, ever forget that. You know why? Because that's how a fucking religion has started. And that's why we're in a lot of trouble, because people have given their power over to other people. And those people have said, I am the truth and I am the way. And guess what? They're not. And the challenge is on you to tap in. And maybe some of that Neptune and Aries can bleed through and you'll have it, right? Maybe you and I and other people will understand that the God that we're talking about is within each and every one of us, and that we don't need middlemen, and we don't need to have, the massive multi-million dollar places of worship, right? And I guess it might be a marketplace of ideas or a marketplace of beliefs. Maybe you'll see the rise of, other, maybe Satanism rises during Neptune and Aries. Quite possible, by the way. Quite possible. So maybe that's part of it too, right? Man, we're sorting through, our own individual relationship with truth, not just how we relate to truth with a capital T amongst other people. I mean, that's down the line a little bit, but it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. But don't ever sell yourself out. Don't ever do it. But what you have to do, this is just me speaking, by the way. You don't have to do it. But I like to litmus test stuff, and I like to see where it's going over a period of time. There's some things you just know. That's just the way it is. Truth resonates. It just resonates. You just go, oh yeah, that feels right. I mean, it gets down, right? It goes down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 levels. So I remember reading back when I was in college. I studied English lit and criticism and all that stuff. And something that's really, really good, like a really good piece of literature or a really good piece of perennial philosophy or something like that, has at least 7 layers of meaning. 7 layers of meaning if it's really good, right? You get down to that bottom level where it's like purely symbolic and it's like hitting on all these cylinders and synapses in your head, right? And the neuroreceptors and all that stuff. And it's like, boom, you get it, right? That's the level that it's so deep that it transmits or translates without any kind of cognition. But there are other levels below that, or above that, rather. Anyway, don't sell yourself out. Stay in touch. Stay in touch with the little check and balance system inside, because the other side of Pisces is Virgo. The other side of Pisces is Virgo. So we're dealing with, some ability to retain some critical faculty. You retain too much critical faculty, you'll cut yourself off from inspiration. Everything will just be didactic, right? And if you go too far into inspiration, you'll have your money stolen from you. You'll have your money stolen from you, and you'll say, "Thank you very much. Would you like some more, sir?" Right? So it's a balancing act between those two realms. And in the United States chart, Neptune is in Pisces. I'm sorry, Neptune is in Virgo. Neptune is in Virgo. So we're going through this time with this Neptune opposition in the U.S. chart, and even that's significant. That's like what? Look at Biden. By the way, you're going to hear more and more information about Biden being not functional. That's coming. I guarantee you that is coming. When we get into August, whoever or whatever Joe Biden is, he's a Scorpio. Once we get into August and we get into that Leo sun, and it starts to square his natal sun in the 12th house, it is going to illuminate what a problem and what a challenge Joe Biden is for everybody, including the people that are doing everything in their power to drag him across the finish line to 2024. They're gonna realize it. They're gonna get it. Keep your eye on August with Joe Biden. That light is just going to come right through into his 12th house, illuminate his 12th house, and people are going to see, they're going to see him for what he is right now, which is whatever you think he is, whoever you think he is, he's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment. And that's intentional, by the way. That's completely intentional. And it was interesting because what was it last week? Gavin Newsom, they want Gavin Newsom to be president of the United States. There's a big faction. Gavin Newsom is really connected. He's connected to Nancy Pelosi. He's connected to a major power base in California, including Silicon Valley. Like, they want Gavin Newsom to be president. He was actually at the White House last week. He snuck in through the freaking back door. He took the Uvalde entrance, and he was there. He's not on the list, right? You got to sign in when you go to the White House. You got to sign in. That's the way it's always been. He didn't sign in. He went through the back door. Why was Gavin Newsom at the White House going through the back door? Oh, maybe it's because he's meeting with people. Maybe it's because they're having some kind of powwow that is connected to Kamala Harris. Now, if you know anything about Kamala Harris, and I've talked about her chart, her chart is lined up. Once Saturn's retrograde right now. Once it goes direct and hits her midheaven, I think her midheaven is about 25 degrees, 20. It's going to come back and guarantee you that's when Kamala Harris, I believe, will step in and become president of the United States. How long she's president, I don't know. That's a whole other issue. That is a whole other issue. Now, remember, Kamala Harris comes from professionally the Bay Area. And Kamala Harris is a Libra with a Gemini rising. And Gavin Newsom is a Libra, right? So, we have these two Libras that have known each other for a long time. And one could make a case that, Kamala Harris would not have been elected without Gavin Newsom, but more importantly, his connections and the money of Pacific Heights. I did a whole series of shows on Kamala Harris and her deep connections to these Walter Shorenstein and all these people with a lot people that you probably haven't heard of in San Francisco that have a shit ton of money, and they helped get her elected. And she's such a backstabber. So she worked for this guy Terrence Hallinan, and Terrence Hallinan was running for he had to run again for DA, and so she was his assistant DA, and she ran against him. And not only did she run against him, but she spilled the beans on shit that he did when he was district attorney in San Francisco. Like, she just put a knife in his back, and he lost. And she won the election. And that's really when she started to, gain political traction in California. She went from there to becoming the attorney general, from there to becoming a state senator. And now here she is, one heartbeat away from the presidency. But it's connected to Gavin Newsom. Like, it's that whole Marina, Pacific Heights, Nob Hill crowd that put money behind Newsom and put money behind Harris. So could Newsom become vice president? I think there's a very good chance of that. A very good chance. And I think that's what that meeting was about. For a long time, I thought it was Pete Buttigieg, because they need to have a white male behind Kamala Harris. They have to have it. They have to. And if they somehow get Gavin Newsom in and give him more mic time, what'll happen? He'll be there for 2 years. And again, this is all theoretical as we move out to 2024. It's a lot easier for him to run as president if he's been in the White House for 2 years. Or because there's a huge faction of people in the Democratic Party who we're talking high ranking people in the Democratic Party who hate Kamala Harris and don't think she's qualified at all. They're not deaf, dumb, and blind. Okay, those would be the same people that would be willing to make a deal for Gavin Newsom and have Kamala Harris be president for a brief period of time. We have the first female president. We have the first, mixed race, BIPOC, whatever president, checkbox. And then for whatever reason, health, 6 months, 8 months into the Harris regime, Newsom moves up. Think it's impossible? It's happened before. They did it with Agnew, although it was reversed, right? With Agnew, they got Agnew out of the way. Once they got Agnew out of the way, they put Gerald Ford in. And then they got rid of Nixon, and then Gerald Ford bumped up, and then who did they bring in for vice president? Nelson Rockefeller, who ran the country for 2 years, right? Anyway, it's a little off topic, but I'm telling you that you got to watch out for August with Joe Biden. Because when that Leo sun comes in and bounces off that mirrored prism in his chart and then slams into his Scorpio sun in the 12th house, it's illuminated. It's like a fucking Newgrange moment, okay? People will go, we can't have this. I mean, we just can't have this. Even people that are incredibly devoted to him, like Ron Klain, they're going to throw in the towel. We got to do something. It's coming, right? It is coming. Now, how they do it, that is going to be the real big Piscean theater, won't it? Will it be that President Biden is stepping down because he has health issues? Maybe. You would certainly have some sympathy for him, wouldn't you? Or at least most people would. Or would they choose to make it something more dramatic? Because guess what? We are in the deep Piscean theater. Neptune and Pisces rules movies, and we're watching a big movie. Big movie. A big movie with strange actors. Could something happen to Joe Biden that would be more dramatic? Could they stage an event? Could there be a false flag? Could there be a psychological operation? Could they, pardon the pun, kill two birds with one stone, right? I mean, there's that too. And if that does happen, then we've got a whole other discussion going on. We're in this very precarious place, just in terms of the world theater. In terms of the big picture, the grand theater, right? The grand cosmic theater, I actually think we're okay. I think we are going to go through a reset. We are going to go through a time where this shit is going to be just wiped clean. It's going to happen. And John talked about that today, actually. I thought he had a good take on it. And he was bringing in the concept of the Hopi. The Hopi have, if you want to talk about resets, the Hopi have the first world, second world, third world, fourth world. And every time they go to these new worlds, right? And there was this idea with the Hopi that, if you're right with Creator, you'll make it through. It's the eye of the needle. You'll get through. And once you get through, well, then you get to be a part of what's on the other side, for better or worse. And I think it's for better. So I think in the grand scheme of things, we're going to be okay. In the interim, it's high seas. They're big waves. We're taking on water. I'm staying with this Neptunian theme here. Okay. Let me go back to chat. Let's see who else is here. I got off on a little bit of a tangent there. Because did I show you the old world Florida stuff? I think I did. I'm having a Biden moment. Just in case I didn't, let me just show you the old world Florida stuff one more time. Because sometimes I just get into a damn stream of consciousness. This is great. Hell on Earth, Ancient Finnish Wisdom. Watch that. That was great. Florida's Pyramids. That was cool. This is really good. And that one's just come out. Looking forward to watching it. There you go. Some new content for you. All right. Let's see who else is in chat. Who else do we have? Mickey King. Hey, Mickey, good to see you. Good to see you. Only 8 likes so far. Yeah, hit the like button. Why not? It's not gonna it's not gonna hurt, is it? Thanks, Marissa, for the compliments on the background. Shirley, what's going on, Shirley? Meowgical Catacorn, good evening. It's my birthday today. Oh, happy birthday. Is there a cool birthday song that I could play? You know, didn't they put a copyright on the happy birthday song? I think they did. Derek Rain Walls, digging the hat energy. Thanks, Derek. SL Sully, she smashed it. Gucci, what's going on, Jake? I got to catch up with you. I got to find out how your ascent up the mountain is going. Brandy McWilliams is here. Neo's here. There she is, the lovely and talented one, Dr. Joan, checking in. Let's see, Wendy Eater, Catstrology. Yes, it's a thing. Garrett Brooks says, my cat Augie was a Leo, the coolest cat I knew. Oh, that's like a double. It's like a double Leo. WC Ray, give Jasper Comfortus. We give him a lot of good stuff. I think today he's been dosing on some catnip. Let's see. Dave got hit hard with bug. Yeah, he did, didn't he? He got. I mean, I think again. I think that David works hard and he plays hard. Right? He works hard and plays hard. At some point, it's going to catch up with you. At some point. And again, it's Cancer Month, self-care, all that just before he hits his solar return. I think that's part of it. I think it like, the guy is like fucking uber productive. He's streaming all the time. He's doing new shows, developing new content, right? I mean, David is a hardworking motherfucker. And he likes to play a little hard too. Let's get out on those jet skis, right? So at some point, you have your body's just going to say, "Whoa, we need time out here." Every now and then. Let's see, who else do we have? Artist Seer, what's happening? Nicholas Grimm, the young magician, the young wizard, is here. Lunar return is always hot for me. I just had mine, 22 Cancer. Interesting. Yeah, lunar return. We might talk a little bit about the moon tonight. Let's see. Amanda says, I hope David gets better soon. I was sick for about 3 weeks at the beginning of summer. Hadn't been that sick in years. Yeah, I mean, it's, whatever this this macrophagic interdimensional agency is, it'll catch it and it'll knock you the fuck out. Daphne Smith is checking in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Hi, Daphne. Good to see you. There's my man, Steve. What's going on, Steve? Arlene Vega. What's happening, Arlene? Dr. Laura Wilson. Hey, Doc. What's up, Doc? We got some doctors here tonight. Susan Chappelle is here. Who else do we have? I loved going back to school. I didn't mind going back to school. Don't get me wrong, okay? I didn't mind it. But there was always a sense of loss and longing when I saw the days getting shorter, right? I was like, click, click, click. Once I got there, I was okay, but I definitely like summer a little bit better. Erica says, I always die right before the Jewish high holy days. There's something I mean that's keyed into the lunar calendar. 22 Cancer, I'd say so. Yep, same school system in Europe back in September. That's from Mateo Eros. Kelly Kells, she says, you may be onto something. I caught the vid 2 weeks before my birthday last year. I'm telling you, there's something about that time as your solar year is ending. Like you're kind of like getting ready for that rebirth, which is what happens when you come around with your solar return. I think there is something there. Let's see. Steve Letcher, when I was a kid, mid-August, Erie County Fair, 10 days, very happy. Oh, man. The county fairs are awesome. I love them. Marty R., my birthday is August 8th. My pain level is off the hook. There we go. So we got Marty coming up with solar return and not feeling real strong. Sheila Sampson is here. What's going on, Sheila? 23 McGraw. Tessa, the lovely Tessa Dick, the lovely and talented, super talented Tessa Dick. What's going on, Tessa? Chad Warren, I'm born on March 20th. I feel after New Year's, so my birthday is a negative seasonal vortex. That's interesting because you're born right there. What is it? Zero Aries. So in this video that I saw, go back to that, the Secrets of Florida, that channel. So there's this guy, his name is Chessar. I think his name is Jim Chessar. Really interesting character. And he talked about how in the northern climes, like way up by Finland, that they would always have their kids. They'd always have their kids in late March. Like it was a practice to have their kids would be Aries. And then what they would do, I mean, this is back thousands of years, right? We're talking like fucking 10,000 years ago. And that they would, because they would be inside, it'd be dark and icy and all kinds of shit, right? But then the sun would come out at the end of March, and they would align a hole inside of their living space so that a ray of sun could come through, and that they would hold the baby up to the beam of sun right on their third eye. And that ray of sun would activate them. So they made it a practice of their children in springtime. I thought that was really interesting. See what you did, Chad? What type of projector are you? I'm a mental projector, and I'm the same way. People watching, observing, to know the reasons, histories, depths of people. I am a splenic projector. I am the most primeval of the projectors, but I am a Scorpio rising. I think that might have something to do with it too. But I do think projectors are observers. We're talking human design now, and they're observers because they need to know what the human experience is like. They need to know what the human condition is like, because the role of the projector is to theoretically help generators understand themselves. And to some extent, other projectors, because I've had good relationships with other projectors. Although it's really interesting being involved in conversations with other projectors. So last night, I went out to dinner with some friends. The doctor and I went out to dinner, and we're talking, right? And I know that they're both projectors. And I was talking with the husband of this couple. He's a super nice guy, really, really talented, like a fucking great chef, really great chef. And he was voicing some frustration about this area not having a certain type of cuisine that would be elevated. And I would say he's right. Like, this area could really use this, right? So of course I go into, kind of professional mode, but because I love the guy, and I'll go there. So at a certain point, and this is key with everybody, but it's really, really key for projectors, I had to ask him, do you want to hear what I have to say about this? Right? That is critical for anybody. That gets into Venus. This could be a good kind of launching point into Venus. That in order for you to have a meaningful conversation with another person, there has to be agreement. You have to have a contract. It doesn't mean you have to have a written contract. You have to have a verbal contract. Would you like to hear what I have to say? If the person says yes, boom, you're in, right? If you start telling people and I've talked about this before, what you think about them, and they don't get to have any say in the matter, they will tune you out. They will tune you out. Period. End of story. But once they say yes, now you got an open canvas, and choose your words wisely. So for projectors, we need that invitation, right? Can you help me with this? I'd like your thoughts about this. What do you think about it? Right? That's the invitation. So in that moment, I knew, him being a projector, that I had to ask him that question, or else it would have just bounced off of him, like a tennis ball on a brick wall, right? Boom, nothing. And I think you could even apply that to, and it wasn't even a heated situation. It was just feedback, but you could apply it to a heated situation where if you were dealing with somebody who may be philosophically opposed to an idea of yours, or you're dealing with an interpersonal dynamic with that person. Here comes Venus, right? Venus is a planet that relates to contract. You ask them. And guess what? They have the right to say no. They have the right to say no. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we're not going there. How about those A's? Right? So that's what happens. If you want to have a meaningful conversation with anybody, just ask them. If they say yes, even if they are 180 degrees opposite of your position, you have a much greater chance of connecting with them and reaching them in that moment. So that's an important key to that. And projectors have to learn that. Everybody should learn that. 23 McGraw says, I'm always stressed and tired the month before my birthday. And it's Santa Claus and Christmas. Well, that's a trying time. I like that time, though. That's when the sun is in my first house. I like that time. Marissa says, this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm an Aries and Pisces. Season always seems to be rough for me. Low energy, more difficult things. I think we've together team. I think we've hit the mother load here, right? And I just started thinking about this with David and how he went down during Cancer season. I'm like, well, let me think about this. I think there's some truth to this, right? And so here we go. We exchange stories and toss things back and forth, and there it is. Okay. All right. Before I get into Venus some more, there's a couple of pieces of business I do need to take care of. One, speaking of David, we're going to have an event together, and that is going to be in October here in the Hill Country. And guess what? During Venus season, Libra season. It's a great season to exchange ideas, meet new people. Hopefully, we can bring some balance into our lives, right? And I always try to do that with these events. You just don't sit around and listen to people talk at you, right? There's other things that we do. We get out, there's other activities, right? So I try to find a balance between kind of being cerebral and then being experiential. And we'll get that this year as well. So let me just give you a quick peek at the event page. It's over on my website. And that's the Hill Country Harvest Moon. This is the 4th year that we've been doing it in Kerrville, Texas. And that's about, I'd say 50 miles west of San Antonio, and maybe about 85 miles, 90 miles west of Austin. Okay, so that's on the 14th and the 16th. We kick it off on Friday, and then people pack out on Monday. You can get a room on the Thursday night beforehand. A lot of people do that. So you wake up fresh, refreshed, and ready to go on Friday morning. So there he is, sitting in his Leo King throne right there. So he'll be with us the whole weekend, and David doesn't spin, right? He doesn't like spin, but he twists knobs and hits samples and creates electronic music. He's going to do that as well on one of the nights we're together. So you're going to get the cerebral side and you get the play side. And then there's the lovely Guadalupe River behind the hotel. And there is the hotel at night. And that's a big pool. Like sometimes pictures can be deceiving. That one is actually bigger than the picture itself. And then there's a hot tub back here. And then they have another pool that overlooks the Guadalupe River that's off the property. You can find out more. By the way, you've got a little less than a month to get the early bird special, as they call it, right? After the 15th, it goes up $89. And then after the 15th, you could cancel. If you're going to cancel before the 15th of September, you can do that. I hope you don't, but sometimes things come up. You will get, there's a $100 cancellation fee. After September 15th, that's it. You're in. All the food is bought. We get our meals catered there at the hotel. You get 3 dinners. They're delicious. I tell you that right now. You get some hill country cuisine, Tex-Mex. You have surf and turf. We have a lovely brunch set up for Sunday morning. So we have snacks, tea, coffee the entire time you're there, right? There's a lot to do, and it's going to be a great event. And I hope as many of you can make it as you can. If you want to reserve a room at the hotel, you can do that right there. That's the number. And over on the 11th House Astrology with Robert Phoenix on Telegram, you can go there and hang out. And if people do share rooms, they've shared them in the past. And some of the people become very good friends as a result of this. We did have somebody, no, I don't want to put any bad vibes on it. I was going to make a joke, but I don't want to do that. But a lot of people have like connected and really created like very deep friendships now as a result of this, which is great. And I think it's one of the reasons why I have it during Libra season, because people are friendly, right? People want to connect. People want to, sit down and have one-on-one conversations with another person, at the dinner tables at night, or, you know what I mean? There's that. Plus the weather is the best in October in Texas. Okay. We got one other piece of business and then we'll get on with some more stuff here. Let's see. We have our good friend, Lisa, who is, let's see if we can find this. Where is she? I got to find the link now. Let me see. That's not it. Hold on. I have to send it to myself again. Oh, let me do this. Okay. Give me 1 sec. So we have our friend Lisa, who is doing her best to get on stage at the Hollywood Bowl, and she needs your votes for that. So let me do this. Let me click through here, and here we go. Hold on 1 sec. All right, let me try this again. Dead air. Voices on dead air. All right, I got to go back. Oh, I thought I had this. And I got to get it out there. Let me see that. Hold on. We're going to get there. Here we go. All right. Aha, there it is. Yes. That's what I need. All right. Thank you for your patience. So our friend Lisa is an actress and a singer, and she is trying to get into singing at the Hollywood Bowl. And she's got talent. I'm telling you, girl's got talent. She can sing. If you vote for her, she'll give you a free song. That's the other thing. So where is she now? She's in 4th place. Okay. I think she's got 2 days left. You can vote more than one day. So let me bring this up here. LA Bliss. That's Lisa right there, right? 4th in the group. Boom. Got a free daily vote. And the other thing, too, is apparently the 4 days left. We got 4 days left. I'll run this next few days. She's actually gone up 4 spaces. So she's getting some traction here. And if you do the together vote, I think if you donate money to suicide prevention, I think they have a suicide prevention thing, you actually get more votes. So if you feel like you want to throw $10 or something down to help them out with suicide prevention, hey, there you go. You help out a good cause and you give her a few more votes, but you can vote once a day. So it's openact.com/2022 /L /A hyphen /L -A -Bliss LA Bliss. And she also has a Instagram page. Let me see if I can track that down. I think she's got like she's got like a video that she does for people, right? So here's Lisa's Instagram page. And I think everybody does like a bit of a pitch right there. There you go. So she was actually here. I'll give a little backstory because she can't really do that. She was actually really ramping up with her recording stuff. Made some videos. She's got a good voice. She's funny. She's an actress. She's got a bunch of funny shit. But she was really ramping up, like getting momentum, and then wham, the vid hit, right? Shut everything down. Everything. Her ability to perform live. Like, it just she spent all this money, cut this record, made these videos, and that happened. So this is an opportunity to try to get some of that momentum back. So there you go. I'll leave a link in the show notes. All right, that's it for the business. Okay, let's see. Let's get into. I did the chart of the moment, but I did it for a while ago. I did it at 6 p.m. But that's okay. We can still kind of get where the planets are. Let's look at it. So what's interesting is that if we were to look at this from a sidereal perspective, the Cancer Sun would be right here in conjunction. So sidereal, which is really theoretically what you see up in the heavens, we're having that binary moment. I mean, there's another way that we can have the binary moment, which is if the sun is in Capricorn and Sirius in Cancer, right? So, but here we're having this binary moment here, where the two binary suns, who theoretically are in this pattern. Have you ever seen any of those videos? Have you ever seen those videos with theoretically Sirius and the sun, and they come out looking like the freaking flower of life, right? As everything is rotating around the cosmos. Well, in sidereal, the sun would be right here. And I believe it'd just be rising now slightly before Sirius, but you can still see it in the morning sky. So I put Sirius in here at 14 degrees. Well, I didn't put it there at 14. That's where it is. And when you go and look back on the U.S. chart, like the U.S. charts, the Sirius and the United States sun they're there, right? They are fully yoked together because, well, they were occultists. They were Freemasons, but Freemasonry meant something different prior to 1776. It's funny. We got into Rob, who's great. He basically runs the Telegram page, and he's always posting, and he's kind of a radical Aquarian, right? And he put this thing on there with baseball and the Freemasonic symbol, right? Which is the the square, the compass, and the baseball diamond. Baseball is a Freemasonic sport. Make no mistake about it. But it is a freaking like magical. It's like a magical theorem. So with baseball, you have 90 feet between each base, right? 90 feet. If you add that up, you get 360. Right? What is 360? It is the circumference of the circle. So what happens when you do that? You are circling the square, right? You are performing an alchemical ritual with baseball just by that alone. And then when you get into baseball, you get 3 6s and 9s. 3 6s, which is essentially the same numerical pattern that Tesla talks about. That's why I think baseball is an interesting sport. And yeah, does it come out of Freemasonry? Did Abner Doubleday steal it? Sure he did. So you had Abner Doubleday, who's considered to be the founder of baseball, who I believe was a Mason. Prior to that, you had Alexander Cartwright, who was supposedly Canadian. And then baseball is based on an Indian sport called rounders. So anyway, and it's all associated with the summertime. But I thought this whole idea of esotericism. Look, there was a time I think that these Freemasonic principles and these Freemasonic ideas were more embedded in a sacred relationship, whether it was through geometry or whether it was through Tesla-like principles with the 3 6 9, and that it all got inverted. And then they told people, well, stay away from this shit. It's the work of the devil. And I don't necessarily buy that. No, I do think it got perverted and inverted. Absolutely. But there's a reason why it's there, right? There's a reason why it's there, because it's the remnant of another time. At a time we were more closely aligned with some of these things. And even then, like that wasn't like the halcyon days of the human experience. I mean, you could go back even beyond that. And there was a time where we kind of inhabited both spirit and matter. And we were probably very different beings in a lot of ways. But we've descended, right? We've descended, and now we're in this weird, like, inversion. We're in this weird de-evolution, Uranus and Taurus. It's all about de-evolution, right? So anyway, I was just kind of going into a little bit of a riff there about Sirius and the symbolism of Sirius and the founding fathers and all. That's their star. That's their blazing star. So we're coming to the end of Cancer season. We're coming up on Leo, 25 degrees. So here's a little exercise for you. Keep your eye on the energy on, let's see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Keep your eye on the energy on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we'll talk about it next week. We'll look at what happened on Wednesday, because that's the 27th and the 28th degree of the sign. Those 2 degrees tend to get really wacky. Like shit is all over the place. So that's coming. And then we're going to have the sun overtake Mercury here, right? It's going to overtake Mercury. It's going to come across Mercury, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll be happening. Mercury's going to be at 26. Here, let me get the ephemeris out. I need to make sure. I am a Virgo, so I got to keep my shit together here. Okay. All right. By the way, if you don't have an ephemeris, I suggest you get one just in case the lights go out. All right. So let's go into August. And let's see. Oh, yeah. Now Mercury's speeding past the sun. We got let's see, we got July here. Yeah. Yeah. So Mercury actually is speeding up because we did go through that retrograde period. So Mercury is speeding up and the sun will not catch up. And so it's ahead of the sun now. And usually when Mercury is ahead of the sun, the whole idea is that, people would use their brains first before acting. With Leo, though, and we're just,
4 days out from Mercury being in Leo, that's really dramatic. You know, that's a really Mercury in Leo is dramatic. If you have Mercury in Leo and you're an actor, it's probably not a bad thing. All right, let me go back to this chart. Here we go. Right here. Okay, so 4 days from now, Mercury goes into Leo. But again, it's going to be tomorrow. Mercury's at that 27th degree. Is at the 27th degree of Cancer. So tomorrow and Wednesday, tomorrow and Tuesday with Mercury, that should be interesting. Keep your eye on banks and ATMs over the next 48 hours. We're already starting to see some glitching, right? At this degree, these degrees, Cancer, what do people do with Cancer? They fucking save. That's what Cancer does. It saves, conserves. It's a conservative sign. Mercury at that degree, 27, 28, could get glitchy. Just saying. We do have some nice trines going on right now with we got the moon in Pisces. Mercury is pulling away from it a little bit, but it's a nice trine. They'll kind of be, working it out. They'll be in simpatico mode over the next 24 hours. Intuitive. I would say maybe I should get done early tonight. Tonight and tomorrow would actually be a good day to have, especially tonight, or maybe today if you already did it. It'd be a good day to have a conversation with somebody that you wanted to connect with, in a meaningful way. Cancer is a very soulful sign, and when you have Mercury in Cancer trining the Pisces moon, it's soulful, and you got the Mercury trine Neptune. There's a lot of unconditionality with Mercury at this point. It's moving into that direct opposition with Pluto. So you do have a bit of a choice here. You can either, deal with that intensity or the intensity of the news. We all might have to deal with the intensity of the news, by the way. But I feel like there's a much more humane and kind of higher vibration here with Mercury and trine with the moon and Neptune. I like it. And even when it moves into Leo over on the 4 days from now. So what is that? The 21st, 22nd, right around there. It starts to move into trine with Jupiter. That's a lot of big ideas. That's a lot of hot air with Mercury and Leo trining Jupiter in Aries. But it could also be really interesting. If you're passionate about something, you can get your point across. But the next couple of days, I think, could be interesting, just in terms of having, really soulful and empathic communication with other people. So even tomorrow, or if you're on the West Coast or whatever, you need to make a phone call or want to make a phone call, or even send I think phone is better than email. Things get lost in email, the nuance. It's like now you got to put an emoji behind something just to make sure that people know that you're kidding or something, right? And God forbid you put the wrong fucking emoji down. Will you ever have that happen? That can be a little embarrassing. Just saying. Let's see. Oh, look at that. Venus is about to change signs. It's 29 degrees Gemini. No wonder we're talking about Venus. Venus is about to go into Cancer. I like Venus in Cancer. It's homey. It's domestic. I think it's actually a pretty good placement for Venus. And in terms of like if you have Venus and Cancer in your chart, in terms of intimacy, Venus and Cancer can be profoundly reciprocal, right? Because Cancer is one of those signs that all the water signs can do this, by the way. They can take energy or emotion from another person, and then they can take it inside themselves and then recirculate it out. And I think Cancer, of the three signs, probably from a symbolic level, does it the best, right? You could just see it here, right? You could just see whoops, let's go back. My computer's weird. It's glitchy. You could just see with Cancer, it's sort of the reciprocity with Cancer, the yin and the yang, right? It's taking the emotions and then bringing them inside and then, bringing them back out again. Venus in Cancer can really do that. And I think it's good for, like being charitable. And Cancer is sometimes a sign that can be a little tight with the buck, but Venus in Cancer can be charitable. I like it. I think it's a really humane placement for Venus. It can be hard to break up with somebody with Venus in Cancer, because what does a crab do? Like, holds on to things, right? So if you do have Venus in Cancer, sometimes breaking up can be a challenge. It's just the nature of it. We got an in conjunct today with Pluto. That's going to be going till Tuesday. That could be secrets coming to light in relationship. From a mundane perspective, we're dealing with things like budgets, especially as we get into like zero Cancer, and that in conjunct will still be right at the edge of that 3-degree orb, right? That's interesting. But what's so strange about our time now is that things have become so weird and so hyper real, which is like the language of postmodernism, that even when you hear something now, you have to wonder whether or not, number one, it's true. And number two, like, we have been so flooded. There's a Neptunian term. We've been so flooded with news, real news, fake news, so flooded that we might hear something and it may, unless the mainstream media picks up on it and then pushes it downstream in a big way, like, it doesn't really, in some ways, it doesn't really matter, right? In some ways, like, for instance, supposedly Biden sold all this fucking oil to China. Now, somebody came back to me, I brought up on my show, well, that's not true. He didn't do that. Well, okay, well, is it true or not true? We've gotten to this point where everything has become so surreal that it is true. It could be true, right? And then we have to sort through, the wheat from the tares. Like, what's really going on? I read one story where MBS over in Saudi Arabia basically said no to whatever Biden wanted. But then I read another story where MBS has agreed to increase the flow of oil. That's where we are right now, especially at this 29th degree Venus in Gemini and the in conjunct with Pluto. We might be able to get something more concrete in 2 days when that in conjunct, I believe, is still going to be fun. Even tomorrow, because this is at 2952. Venus will be in Cancer tomorrow, and it'll still be in that in conjunct through that 3-degree orb. It's got until it's at 025. It's in that 3-degree orb of the in conjunct. So we could have some stuff come out tomorrow. And with Cancer, we're dealing with resources, family resources, national resources, country resources, country, national, this country, family resources anywhere in the world, right? And then we have Venus coming in and squaring Jupiter. That's going to be really interesting too. That's going to be super interesting because I think I might have done that already. I spent a lot of money last night on dinner. I didn't expect to. It was fine. I enjoyed it. It was great. But that's like a Venus Jupiter square. You're like, fuck it. Fuck it. The world's going to end. Let's max the credit card out, right? That's where, I mean, it wasn't quite like that. But that's the Venus Jupiter square. It's like, fuck it. Let's go. Let's go rent a yacht. Sometimes you just got to say, what the fuck, right? I mean, that's a Venus Jupiter square. The extreme of that would be like saying, fuck it, and your boundaries go down. And then you got to deal with the repercussions of that, whatever that is, right? That could be another Venus Jupiter square with the boundaries going down. So, pick your brand of fuck it. And what's interesting is the repercussions with Chiron. You know what I mean? It's sort of like buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later. But what you're gonna buy and what you're gonna pay for, that's up for big time discussion with a Venus Chiron square. It's like, I might have gone a little too far there. I got some patching up to do, right? But even with a Venus Chiron square, that can be constructive. Like if you don't go hog ass wild, and you stay in your lane and everything, Venus Chiron square can be constructive because you can use that to fine tune your relationships without trying to be overly critical. Because I think that's kind of the risk we run right now, as Venus goes through Cancer and it runs into that square with Chiron and the opposition with Pluto, and this whole idea of expectation and relationships. And Venus in Cancer is sensitive. Like you can say more with Venus in Cancer by saying less. Because Cancer of all the signs is, I think, the most somatic. It is the most tactile. It is the most somatic. So you can actually say a lot by not saying much at all with Venus in Cancer. And if you're normally somebody that doesn't say a lot, that Chiron square will force you to talk about relationships or talk about your relationship to certain things. And of course, when we get into Cancer, we're dealing with the mother and we're dealing with maternal factors. I was one of those videos, that guy, Jim Chesar, interesting character. He was talking about how Ra is actually not the sun, but the moon. And that the moon, the masculine side of the moon is the light side, and the feminine side of the moon is the dark side. And he was talking about that as a representation of Ra. They were breaking down the word paradise, Pa being the father, right? The father of all things, the parent of the cosmos. And then Ra being the masculine and feminine principle of the moon, the light side. I thought that's really interesting, right? Para, and then he's got a whole thing with the deus, which is, I think, close to like, deity, deus, interesting stuff, right? Anyway, this is going to be a very interesting transit of Venus through Cancer, because also it's going to be in a sextile with Mars and with Cancer. You're going to see people with this Venus transit through Cancer, people that you would normally consider as conservative or more restrained. You're going to see some of those people do things that you never thought they would do. Like, I can see this coming. And some of it won't be bad, by the way. Like, if you're, okay, we're in Venus talk now, apparently. If you are, I'm going to use this word and not in a clinical way, but just in a kind of everyday sense of the word. If you've been depressed or feeling repressed, this Venus transit is going to help you. I'm telling you right now. It's almost like you've been in the desert and you come upon some water, right? This, especially with Venus and Cancer, like, I want more. I want to soak this up. I want to hydrate, emotionally hydrate. And there's also the potential for risk involved too. Especially when you've got a Venus Jupiter square. Like, all right, what the fuck? Right? Let's max the credit card out. And there's more to it than that. Then you also have these sextiles to Mars and Uranus, and it's like, hey, this is new, this is interesting, this is refreshing. I'm at an oasis here, and it's not like you have to be scolded with Chiron. You just have to like be able to be brave and own up to things if that's how you feel. Right? If that's how you feel, be brave and own up to it. I think this is going to be a very interesting week. So keep your eye on, what did I say? Tuesday and Wednesday with the sun, tomorrow with Mercury, and even Mercury. Okay. Because of these degrees with Venus in this, in conjunct with Pluto, and then you have Mercury at the 27th and 28th degree. And even I guess Mercury's going to be moving out of the in conjunct with Saturn. It's there now. But these days, Monday, Tuesday, let's go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are going to be interesting days. And especially because we have signs changing, final degrees, weird in conjunct with Venus, Pluto. We got Venus moving on towards the beginning of next week with the square to Jupiter. Mercury moving into Leo, final degrees, right? So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Keep your eye on those days. Keep your eye also on your money and ATMs. Like track that shit, because that's the Venus in conjunct with Pluto. That's my best take on it, right there. Okay. Anything else? Any other thing that's newsy with this? So on Tuesday, we're looking at the moon in Aries. Tomorrow you'll wake up and it'll be in Pisces. We got a voided course. But Tuesday we got that moon in Aries. That's going to square the Venus in Cancer. I'm telling you, man. Tuesday is going to be an interesting day. It's not going to be an all hell breaks loose kind of day, but it does feel a bit like the dam breaks loose on Tuesday or Wednesday, because there's so much of that Aries urgency, and Venus is right at the beginning of Cancer. And the symbol, the Sabian symbol for zero Cancer is a sailor at sea lowers one flag and raises another. So there's a sea change going on here. There's a sea change. There's a fire down below with Moon and Jupiter. Now there's a sea change coming. It's going to be an interesting week. Super interesting week. And some of it might be challenging. I'm not going to lie, that Venus at zero Cancer, the in conjunct with Pluto, that could be really tricky. Where are we? I think we're good, right? I think we're good. All right. On that part, let's talk a little bit more about Venus. So let me bring up Hunter Biden's chart, because that's where I got hooked into Venus. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Why is he always videotaping himself? Okay, I think I have it over here. Let's do this. Okay. I do like using Astro theme sometimes. So they don't know the time of Hunter Biden's birth date. That's all right. There are certain things we can get out of this. Okay, so whenever you see somebody that has a Sun-Venus conjunction, they identify with the people that they're with, and the sign that it's in will predicate what that looks like. So, for instance, right, let's say you have a Sun conjunction in, I don't know, let's go with Cancer. Sun Venus conjunction in Cancer. You're the Cancer sun. You have Venus in Cancer. Venus in this situation is out front, right? So this person, i.e., Hunter Biden, relates. It's important for him to associate and relate to the people who he is in relationship with. It is not, if Venus was behind the sun, it would be different, right? It would be him, and then I have this other person with me, but it's more about me, right? So let's just go with this: Sun, Cancer, Venus, Cancer, right? What would that mean? Well, it would mean that that person would identify with people in relationship that are going to share the principles of his sun sign and the expression of his sun sign. And there will generally be agreement with the person that he is in partnership or relationship with, that they will share similar values and it would be expressed in a similar way because this person with the sun conjunction with Venus would relate. It would be important for them. So if it was in Cancer, we know that Cancer is conservative, right? It's Cancer is good with the buck. So the person that theoretically they'd be with would reflect those values. If they are a homebody, which we would expect sometimes with Cancer, their partner or their relation, they would want that person around at home. Am I right? I mean, that's how this thing works. They're relating to that. Now, in public, they would want somebody to emulate qualities that the person who's the sun sign, could project onto. That's how it works. They're looking for somebody that can emulate those qualities or emulate those values. And there could also be physical things involved as well. You know, maybe somebody who's a Cancer sun man, you know, is in a relationship with somebody who might actually physically look like his mother. Like maybe his mom had big boobs, right? So for him, it's important to go find somebody with big boobs. He may not even know that. And it's, you know, and it's different for women and men. Like for a woman, if you're a Cancer sun, and you have Venus in Cancer there, you're looking for the same thing. Not a woman with big boobs, but you're looking for somebody that can emulate your values. The challenge with that is you don't want to go too far into that because you'll wind up with like a girl, you know, girly man, or if you're into that, like if you're into dudes, like so we get into some interesting like dynamics here. But ultimately, you know, we know that Cancer likes to be at home, have projects. It's a domestic sign. You want a domestic partner, male or female. It's usually how this thing works. If it's the same sign and we have a conjunction, that's Cancer. If you have Sun in Aries and Venus in Aries, you want somebody you can go do shit with, right? Like you want to go find somebody you can hike a mountain with or bike with. It's very active. And you want somebody that can stand up to you and somebody who can basically walk through the fire of life with you. And you'll theoretically will find somebody. If you don't, then that can be problematic. You know, the only reason it's problematic because Venus is in its fall in Aries. But you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to give you some ideas and correlations as to what happens with people when they find, if they have their sun in one sign, they have Venus in the same sign, and it's conjunct their sun. They learn about themselves through the other person. The other person is supposed to reflect something, whether it's their values or they somehow think that this person completes them, because you can get into that with Venus. What about Aquarius? What are we talking about with Aquarius here? First of all, Aquarius is an extremely voyeuristic sign, especially Moon, and Venus. There's a quality of voyeurism to Aquarius. So what do you see with Hunter Biden all the time? He's fucking videotaping everything. So I started to think about this. I'm like, well, let me check out his chart. And he's got this Venus in Aquarius. And okay, he'll lay down with anybody. Apparently, I mean, if you look at the videos, I mean, whether it's a call girl or, unfortunately, looks like there's underage girls involved, he'll fucking lay down with anyone. That's Venus in Aquarius. And I'm not saying if you have Venus in Aquarius, I'm not saying you're a whore, by the way. But there is that quality with Aquarius where it's like, it's very democratic. Like, I'm game. There is that quality to Aquarius. But I actually think he gets off more on the videotaping of his exploits, his escapades, sexcapades. I think he gets off on that more than he does, in some ways, the actual person that he's with. And you have to ask yourself, right? What is he doing with these videos? Do you think he's just like, keeping him on his iPhone and just popping them up every now and then? I guarantee you he's sending these fucking videos to people. That's what he's doing. And then eventually what happens? It gets broadcast all across the entire planet. And so what is he trying to do? Ultimately, he's trying to understand who he is in relationship with these weird relationships, people he'll never see again, more than likely, videotaping them, watching himself video. I mean, there's layers to this thing, but also he's drugged up and we know that, but he's doing this for a weird reason, right? He's trying to understand who he is through the lens of all these other people. And then he broadcasts it to the world. So I went through and I looked at other people who have Venus and Aquarius. And there's some interesting, maybe I have a visual here. Okay. So we have Mars opposite Venus. Oh, Mars opposite Uranus. Okay. There's some freaks in there. Who's a freak? Chris Brown, kind of a freak. Chris Brown, anger management problems, right? Serious anger management problems. Let's see. Moon, Mercury conjunction. Orb 250. That'd be me, by the way. Miley Cyrus, Halle Berry, Muhammad Ali, Robert Redford, Zooey Deschanel. The singer Jennifer, V.A. Vio, Jean Moreau, Ringo Starr, Amanda Lear, transvestite, Hugo Chavez, Hallie Steinfeld, blah, 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 blah. Born on the same day, Rosa Parks, Aquarius, Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper dressed in drag, didn't he? There you go. Who else? Charles Lindbergh. Oh, that's interesting. Jacques Pervert. No, it's Jacques Prévert. Oscar De La Hoya. Okay. So I'll tell you who has Venus and Aquarius. Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher has Sun, Moon, and Venus and Aquarius. What did Ashton Kutcher do? He basically produced and starred in his own TV reality show called Punk'd. And what did they do on Punk'd? They fucking videotape people, right? They videotape people. That's Venus and Aquarius right there. Watching, right? Who else has Venus and Aquarius? Alec Baldwin has Venus and Aquarius. What is he doing? He's always talking to his fucking cell phone. Nobody gives a shit about what Alec Baldwin has to say. But he's always talking to his cell phone and he's doing these Instagrams. Like, who cares? But that's Venus and Aquarius. He's trying to understand himself through his relationship with the many, which is what Aquarius is. Hunter Biden has it at different levels, like the many hookers in his life, or the many drug pals, and then the many being, who's watching that shit. Sharon Stone has Venus in Aquarius, and she's in that movie Sliver, where Billy Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's brother, plays a guy who videotapes everybody in this condo complex, and she becomes his lover. So Venus in Aquarius is really trippy, very strange in a lot of ways. And for too bad, Hunter Biden, when you get into these really tight orbs, and he's got these tight orbs, 18 degrees, 15 degrees. So here in fixed sign land, that's fucking compulsive. Like when you get really on those tight orbs, you can't really help yourself. There's no separation, right? There's none. And he can be charming with Venus Sun conjunction. You can, he's got that reptilian charm about him. But there is that compulsive quality with the fixed sign. Here it's even tighter. 2 degrees, sun, moon, or moon, Mercury. So I have that same configuration in my chart, although it's in Libra, not Capricorn. People that have moon, Mercury conjunctions have really good memories. They're very retentive. It's like having Mercury in Cancer. If you have Mercury in Cancer, I bet you have a great memory. So Hunter knows, he knows a lot of names. Even after years and years of crack, meth, coke, whatever, right? He probably still has a fairly decent memory. That moon is balsamic. It's dissipative. He has to let go. He has to let go of the power. I think to me, the Venus Sun conjunction. So I'm bringing it up to talk about Venus because what he's trying to do is he's trying to understand who he is by who he's having partnership with. And in Aquarius, it involves what? Social media, videotaping. Like Hunter Biden is making a movie. That's what he's doing. He's making a movie. And he is the director and the star of his own movie. But he's more the director than he is the star, I think. Right? He's like, okay, let me place the camera here. Like, there are scenes where he's got other people fucking filming him. He's not filming those things. He's not videotaping those things. He's directing them to do it. So he's the actor and the director, but more like the director out of this whole thing. And I tell you, he's got this Saturn Neptune square in his chart. Right there, right? Isn't that right? Let me just go by this. Now, let's see. Neptune's at 0 Sag. And Saturn is at, let's see. That's the Jupiter-Saturn opposition. That's what he's got because Neptune doesn't really square up there, does it? My bad. Jupiter-Saturn opposition. Too much. There's too much going on here, right? It's like anything worth doing is worth overdoing. But over here with Saturn, he can get in some serious fucking issues. Like this is where he can get owned. These are debts. Jupiter and Scorpio, they're debts. And Saturn and Taurus, he can be owned. Right there. Right. I mean, look, if Hunter Biden wasn't such a mixed up, broken, for lack of a better term, satanic free agent, right? A Jupiter-Saturn opposition theoretically could be something that could be good in a chart. Like Jupiter would be like, I have a big idea, or I have, a major opportunity. And Saturn would say, okay, well, fucking get to work, right? Like that could be something actually fairly successful. But in this case, it's not. In this case, he winds up going overboard with Jupiter and Scorpio. Too much sex, too many drugs, right? Too much. And then, this could be the big guy. It could be China. It could be any number of authoritarian figures that own him at that point. He's got that Mars-Neptune trine. So I've never looked at his art, but generally speaking, Mars-Neptune trines are indicative of some degree of creative talent. I have really not spent any time looking at fucking Hunter Biden's art. Trust me. And then he's got that true node in Pisces. Hunter, I'd say, get right with God. So you can sort that out. Is this an interesting chart? I mean, yeah, to some degree it's interesting. We don't know his birth time, so it's hard. Everything is tied into his relationships and partnerships for all the world to see in their kind of most perverse glory through Aquarius. I also think that he might have this hidden, and again, I'm not here to bail Hunter Biden out, but he might have this hidden depth and sadness for the loss of his mother with that Moon Mercury conjunction, especially with the moon being balsamic and having to let go. It's not dissonant, like it's not in opposition with anything, or it's not squaring up. But I think this is all hidden. This is like behind him, right? So there's a part of him with this Moon Mercury conjunction. I would even have to say that he's trying to bury something there. He's trying to bury something. And even with Mars, right? He's got this kind of wide sextile with Mars Sun. And Mars in Aries, he's just going to be after instant gratification. Mars Aries, let's go. Right? So it's a driver. But I think he's dealing with something that he's running away from, this Moon Mercury thing. Like maybe he really knows what happened to his mother, and he can't say anything. Right? I also have this weird feeling that his real father is Jim Biden, but that's a whole other story. So Venus plays an important role with how we relate to people. So if you've got a Sun-Venus conjunction in your chart, there's also an aesthetic value there too. With you need to look good with Sun-Venus, right? Because the world looks at you and says, "Oh, this person is approachable, or this person is attractive, or this person has an aesthetic value that I like," right? So there's part of it. The upside with the Sun-Venus conjunction, Venus in terms of relationship, is that you're going to do well socially. The downside is that it can be superficial, and that you just want people to help you along with your path, and you don't really care, right? That's where you get into using people. We've seen and heard him do his fucking best to use people, especially when he's just been like, crawling on all fours looking for a little rock on the carpet and calling his brother's wife. You've heard that conversation. If you haven't heard it, so it's on the internet. It's pathetic. But the Sun-Venus, they've got him now out there in the White House, like greeting people at the fucking White House. And that all started, by the way, with Venus. Venus was in Gemini. So he was getting some of that Venus trine action to his natal Sun and to his natal Venus. So here you go. Get out there and shake hands. Have you seen the video where he's like asking everybody for Coke? It's funny as hell. Anyway, so Venus is a very interesting planet. And believe it or not, relationships are important to him because of that conjunction. But that conjunction is so close that he can't disentangle himself from what that means. And in Aquarius, it takes it to a wholly different level, real different level. So Venus is about our relationship to things. When it's conjunct the Sun, it's about your relationship to who you are. If you have Venus conjunct other planets in your chart, it's about your relationship to that planet and what that planet represents. So it's not just about, you and another person, but it's about your relationship to the thing that's around it. It's about your relationship to the thing that it represents, the house it's in, and the sign it's in. So Venus is actually more multi-layered than we understand. And during this time of year, Venus rises in the morning, right? It rises in the morning. Well, it does. Sirius also rises in the morning too. But during this time of year, generally speaking, we went through the Venus retrograde, and that really set us back. Remember how Venus was retrograde beginning of the year? It's starting to catch up. In normal years, Venus rises before the sun during the summer, during the spring and the summer. This year, it's behind the sun, which is also kind of interesting, right? Because that even has its relationship with who we are. If Venus is behind the sun, we're placing more emphasis on us than we are our relationships. Our relationships they're there, but they're sort of, I wouldn't say they're hidden or occulted, but they're not the most important thing. Usually when we have this time of year, Venus is ahead of the sun, and they do become important, right? They do become they're connected. Like people get married during the springtime. I think the spring and the fall, I think it's like May and June and October, I think are the three most prominent months to get married. And well, in October, you're dealing with, Venus and Libra, or Libra season and relationship. So this time of year, though, because of the Venus retrograde, Venus is slow, and those things are behind us, but they'll catch up. They'll catch up. It's just not paramount, right? What's paramount right now? What's going on with you? What's happening with you? Because you'll go through the changes, and then your relationships will then work with whatever changes you're going through. Now, conversely, if you're in a relationship with another person, their changes could catch up with you. And then now you got to deal with it because you don't have your eye on the ball, right? You don't have your eye on your connection with another person. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, okay, I've got something I got to deal with now. It's almost like being blindsided because Venus is behind you at this time. So Venus is interesting, and the whole notion and concept of relationship, partnership, contract, it's important, right? It's important to us. We need these things. We need contracts with people. We need to know if people are going to be there for us. We need to let other people know that we can be there for them. Because if we don't have that in our lives, and we can't always do it, nor do we want to always do it, because sometimes it's unhealthy, because some people do it and they want to be enabled. But these contracts are important. And what's happened is that, we're dealing with broken contracts. And even this whole idea with what is a woman, right? What is a woman? That's a Venus issue. It's not a Mars issue. It's a Venus issue. That's feminine. And I know Libra is a masculine sign because it's an air sign, but the Venus is associated with Aphrodite and beauty and grace and aesthetics, right? That's what Venus is related to. And so now we went through this retrograde, and yeah, what was it? It was in was it Capricorn? I think it might have been in Capricorn. Anyway, so we went through that, and now we've got this broken social contract with this whole idea of what a woman is. I mean, that's been broken. Now, when Venus eventually catches up, right? When it eventually catches up, and it will move ahead of the sun. When it does do that, it'll be interesting to see where we are with that discussion, because that got broken, and I don't think it's a good thing. I really don't think it's a good thing, because we need the masculine, we need the feminine, and we need to be able to define those things. We have to define them. It's important. Are you more than the sum of your parts? Absolutely. You're more than the sum of your parts. There are men who can do some feminine shit and do it pretty well, but they may be able to do some masculine stuff and do it pretty well too. There's some women who can do some masculine things well, but they can also be really, really feminine. And not only that, but we're multidimensional beings. I mean, we exist on a number of different planes. We're not just some, amorphic variety of 50 versions of gender. That's a weak attempt at sort of approximating some degree of multidimensionality. It's just weak. So we're way more than the sum of our parts, but we need to have the definition for the masculine and the feminine. It's important. It's an important piece of our alchemical relationship here in this realm. It's vitally important. And if we don't have that, we lose our bearings. We lose our bearings amongst the stars. We lose our bearings amongst our own relationships, our family, right? And then what do you have? You got a bunch of boats at sea without a rudder. And that's really dangerous. Really dangerous. You have, it's like the island of Dr. Moreau. You got a bunch of creatures running around that don't know who they are because they've been morphed into some kind of weird abstraction. And we might see more of that with Venus coming back into Cancer. I think it's going to be a strong Venus season coming up here. And, watch women, watch where women go over the next few weeks in terms of their own approach to femininity. It's going to be interesting. All right, let's talk a little bit about China, and then we'll wrap things up because I think I finally caught up from my little delay here, 2.5 hours. So I brought up China's chart. Let me see if I can get China's chart again. Hold on, I had it here. It's right here. How about that? So Masaki and I were talking about China on Friday. And I really get into the astrology of China towards the end of the show. So one of the things that I don't want to go over too much of the other show, but I'll go over for some, because a lot of you guys don't. I do have a Friday show here on this channel, and I do interview other people, which I love to do. So one of the things that I was talking about with China was Neptune and their Neptunian crisis, because they have a Neptunian crisis. And you have Neptune just coming into their second, well, it's been in their second house, but they have Neptune in the second house, which for finances is not great. It can be okay. It can be tidal, right? Like when I work with people and they've got a Neptune transit going through their second house, I try to give them a different approach to finances and money. And if China hires me, I might do it, but I'm not on their payroll. So Neptune in the second house in a country like this could be problematic because capital is supposed to be fluid, and they have amassed a huge amount of debt. They've overspent on, they've over leveraged themselves on the Belt and Road Initiative, which is their kind of dominance of the Silk Road and the trading route of the Silk Road, lining up with, railways and ports and all this other stuff. So they've done that. They also dealing with the whole COVID thing. Like they want to get to a zero COVID policy. Second house, physical values, Neptune there. Good luck. Like really good luck. Physical values, assets, hard assets. They're having bank closures out in the more rural areas of China. They're not letting them get their money. So we talked about this. We talked about the Neptunian crisis that China is going through. Also, Chiron is here in conjunction with their true node in Aries, right? So this is China's chart circa 1949, right? Right there. And, if you're a communist country and you want to kick some ass and slaughter millions of people, true node in Aries with a Black Moon Lilith conjunction is right up your alley. I mean, I'm being a little facetious here, but I'm not. Because what we've seen out of Xi Jinping is his best Mao interpretation. locking people down, locking people up. Like Xi he turned himself into a hard ass. And he basically said, look, my job's on the line. See, that's what happened to Khrushchev. Khrushchev got put out to pasture. They gave him a dacha, or is that dacha, whatever they call it, like a little hut. They gave him one because they felt like Khrushchev had gotten soft, that Khrushchev had gotten outbluffed with the Bay of Pigs, and that he had denounced Stalin. So they needed to remove Khrushchev. He wasn't tough enough. So then they put in his successor, who was Brezhnev, who was, ruthless. Khrushchev wasn't as ruthless as Brezhnev. Anyway, Mao was ruthless. You got that true node in Aries. It's like, here comes the red guard. Black moon Lilith in Aries also. So casts a pall or a shadow over the overly aggressive foundational changes that will go on with China. Here comes Chiron, right? So when you get a Chiron conjunction with the true node, there's a couple things that can happen. One, like Xi said, well, I got to be the tough guy. I've got to be Michael Corleone. And that's what theoretically Xi became. Because there was a period there for a while where like Xi was hanging out with Trump and shit. You remember that? That doesn't happen. Xi does not hang out with Biden. That's because he doesn't want to, and he already owns him anyway. But there is so at some point, right? Like China is going to have to prove to the world that they're tough, not just to their own people. I believe this happens next year when Jupiter comes in and conjuncts their true node. Now, some people will say that we're already at war with China, and I believe that to be true. Trade war, right? There's always wars going on. There's turf wars, gang wars, there's information wars. There's always a war going on. We unfortunately have been baptized in blood in the 20th century. So that's happening. That's already happening. But to me, this Jupiter conjunction is much more martial. Like it's not like, okay, we're going to send a bunch of people to a vaccination clinic in New York City where parents are going to go in and they're going to take their cell phones in there and they're going to find that everybody at that vaccination clinic, with the exception of one dude, is Chinese and can barely speak English. That's a different kind of war, theoretically. We're talking boots on the ground. We're talking martial, right? And that's first quarter next year. Jupiter conjuncting the true node. We also have Pluto coming in right there, and conjuncting China's ascendant. China is going to be a different country. But quickly, within the next 2 years, it'll be a different country. Pluto can be destructive. But with the moon there, they could also be reshaping. They could be reshaping their relationship with what they call home, right? And I talked a little about this on the show, because if their economy is flat, and it is, they can't grow their economy, especially when people are buying less shit in the United States. They can't afford to raise their own population too much further up the food chain than lower middle class. They don't want a bunch of like upper middle class people running around in China. They can't afford that because they won't give a shit about the government at that point. They'll have weird notions of freedom and self-actualization. So they have to keep a cap on how much their people can actually experience. So they tried it. They knew that at some point that the amount of money that would be coming in from countries like the United States or wherever they're buying Chinese goods, that they would have to begin to make this kind of tidal shift so that their people could have some of this and they could offset like a moment in time like they're in now with us. but they can't do it too far, or else it upsets the socioeconomic balance of power and ideology. So then what do they have to do? Usually when that happens, countries go out and they find other places with resources to improve their economy. Places like Australia or New Zealand or Canada. And by the way, do not rule that out. But there is a price to pay here with Pluto. Like, there's a big price to pay. And there's a price to pay with the Pluto moon conjunction, because then there becomes this obsession. There's something, now they get into Hunter Biden mode. And they're being very voyeuristic about their conquering or their conquest. I'm being slightly facetious. But I do think that they have some issues. And especially, they've got Venus at 19 Scorpio. So that's relationship, right? What is that relationship to? Other people's money. Other people's money. Assets that are elsewhere. I also think that they've got some issues coming with Africa, which I talked about on the Friday show. They have a lot of interest in Africa. I think they're going to have issues there. Some of the African governments are starting to say, "Hey, look, we want a bigger piece of the pie." And China's like, "Just dribble the basketball, okay, and shut up." I'm being, again, a little sarcastic here and mixing my metaphors, but there is something there. And they've got Saturn, which retrogrades back to 19 degrees, squaring that Venus, and then coming in and then opposing Pluto and Mars. That's kind of a big moment. And China's going to hit that by the end of the year. So I think China is looking at a short-term crisis, especially with the money side of things. And then I feel like they're going to try to transform like their relationship with this idea of home, which is what the moon is, Pluto. But I think that there's a price to pay with that, and that's the conjunct with Uranus and Cancer. And I think they're going to have issues at home too, because here we see Uranus down here in Taurus coming in, right, and coming into their fourth house. To me, that's unrest on the home front, big time, big time unrest. And then the other thing that I was looking at was their Chiron, and I feel like they're going to have issues with Gen Z, because they got that Chiron in Sagittarius, and the Gen Z kids have Pluto in Sagittarius, and these are free thinking, more open-minded, more philosophical. Now, Sagittarius can also be very nationalistic. It has that streak. So there could be the possibility that these Gen Z kids could go through kind of a nationalistic phase, but they could also come out of it. I think they have a problem with the Gen Z kids. That's my humble opinion. And especially with the Uranus right here in conjunct with Chiron in Cancer. So I do think there's going to be some short and long-term issues with China. Part of their long-term issue has to deal with their own youth. Short-term issue, this Neptune transit through the second house with liquidity, and also this Uranus conjunction with the fourth house. So banking, again, the other people's money stuff, that's bank shit, right? Venus, ninth house, also dealing with countries that they're involved with financially, and Saturn coming back, retrograding, hitting it. I think the next 6 months for China are going to be intense. And I don't think it's going to be easy. Some people say, well, good, I'm glad. Well, it'll have an effect on the rest of us. And unfortunately, I do think that the resolution to these issues that they're staring down is a much more aggressive push for economic expansion and land. That's what I think. And that's first quarter 2023. And you can say, well, they're all in it together, that the Cold War was a big scam and, it's all theater. It is, and it isn't. Because at any point along the way, coming back to Venus, what can happen? People can break contracts. And Uranus coming in, opposing Venus, contracts broken, right? Right there. Bang. Okay. I think that's it for this week. There's a lot there. And how long have we been going for? Let's see, started at roughly 9:40, so 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's pretty good. I think, by the way, thank you to the mods for hanging out. I appreciate that. Tom, Ryan, Steve, appreciate you guys. And I promise to do better next week on the time side. And I think my friend Stacy is coming into town, and we're gonna do I'm gonna do a Q&A with her on human design, and I'll run that next week. I'm gonna do 10 questions with Stacy, who's a level 5 projector for human design. We'll do that. We'll tape that. I'll run that next week too. So that'll be cool. That'll be a cool thing to do. All right. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart to set what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Take good care. Thanks for being here. I always appreciate you, whether you're here or not, whether you're in 3D or 5D. I couldn't do this without you. And I sincerely mean that. Thank you very much. Love to one and all. We'll see you here on this channel on Friday with Mark Malone, on Sunday next week with more 11th house astrology. Oh, if you want a reading, go to my website, robertphoenix.com. There's instructions there. As soon as you get the reading, call or text me or hit me up on Telegram. I have a Telegram page and I have a Telegram Signal account. So if you're out of the country, you can always reach me that way. Okay, take care. Bye for now. Ciao.